So today, we are diving into something called the hidden cognitive cost of modern life. We're going to uncover 8 everyday habits that might be, silently draining your mental energy and what you can actually do about it. Let's get right into it.
You ever have one of those days? You're busy from morning till night, but when you finally sit down, you feel like you've accomplished absolutely nothing. It's that classic brain fog feeling, right? Where you're just wired but totally tired? Well, it turns out that's not just in your head. There's a real reason for it.
And this is what our source material calls the modern cognitive cost. The best way to think about it is like a hidden tax on your brain power, a tax you pay with every single click, scroll, and distraction, and you don't even realize you're paying it until you're just feeling completely burned out. So what is cognitive cost really? Well, imagine your brain has a certain amount of energy each day, kind of like a battery on your phone. Every little task, every distraction, even the habits you don't think about, they all drain that battery. And the higher the cognitive cost of something, the less juice you have for the stuff that actually matters, like creative thinking or, solving a tough problem.
Okay, let's kick things off by looking at 4 of these habits. We're going to start with the ones that are all wrapped up in our digital lives. And these are so common, you probably don't even realize the toll they're taking on you.
First up is a habit that, honestly, a lot of us wear like a badge of honor: multitasking. We're juggling emails, social media, a dozen different browser tabs, and we feel so productive. But what is it really costing our brains? Okay, so here's the big secret. We're not actually multitasking. Our brains can't do that. What we're doing is task switching. And every single time you jump from, say, writing a report to checking a quick email, your brain has to burn energy to stop one thing and start another. It is incredibly inefficient. In fact, some studies show it can slash your productivity by up to 40%.
All right, our next habit is one we are all guilty of: the endless scroll. That constant stream of information from our news feeds and social media, it's literally changing our brain's ability to focus.
See, this flood of tiny bite-sized pieces of information is basically training our brains to crave distraction. It makes sitting down and focusing deeply on one single complicated task feel almost impossible. We're essentially conditioning ourselves for shallow thinking.
Okay, this next one. This one might actually surprise you. It's how much we rely on our GPS. I mean, it's super convenient, no doubt about it, but that convenience comes with a pretty serious cognitive cost.
This really comes down to that old use it or lose it principle for the brain. There's a part of your brain called the hippocampus. It's essential for building mental maps and for memory. Think of it like a muscle. When you try to navigate on your own, you're giving it a workout. But when you just blindly follow the GPS, that muscle starts to get weak from sitting idle.
And the last of our digital brain drainers? Passive binge watching. Look, we all love to crash on the couch and unwind with a good show, but how we watch it really matters.
The key word here is passive. It's not like reading a book or even playing a video game where your brain has to be actively engaged. Binge watching for hours can put our brains into this hypnotic, low-activity state. It's basically mental junk food. It feels good in the moment, but it's got zero cognitive nutrition. So really, this all boils down to a battle inside our heads between deep engagement and shallow engagement. Deep engagement, that's active, creative stuff that builds brain power. Shallow engagement, that's all the passive, reactive habits that just chip away at our focus. And our modern world is constantly pushing us toward the shallow end of the pool.
But hey, it's not all about our screens. The next 4 habits are actually rooted in our physical lifestyle, and they have an equally powerful, though maybe more hidden, impact on our cognitive horsepower.
Now this one is absolutely critical, but it's often the very first thing we sacrifice when life gets busy: getting a good night's sleep.
The cleaning crew analogy is just perfect. Think about it. During deep sleep, your brain is working hard. It's organizing memories, but it's also clearing out all this toxic gunk that builds up during the day. When you skip that nightly cleaning, you wake up with that foggy, muddled feeling. It's a direct result.
Okay, here's another habit that has become the default for so many of us: sitting all day. And it's not just bad for our bodies, it's seriously tough on our brains. Here's the thing: physical activity is brain activity. When you move, you're pumping oxygen and all these crucial nutrients to your brain that it needs to thrive. So when you're inactive, it's kind of like cutting off your brain's fuel supply. You're literally hindering its ability to repair itself and to grow.
And speaking of fuel, let's talk about what we're actually putting into our bodies. Our diet has a direct, almost immediate impact on how well we can think. Your brain is an absolute beast.
It consumes about 20% of your body's total calories. It's a high-performance engine. So feeding it a diet packed with sugar and processed foods, that's like putting cheap, low-grade fuel in a Ferrari. It's just going to lead to inflammation, energy crashes, and, you guessed it, poor cognitive performance.
And finally, we get to our last habit, one that messes with our social brain, the big shift we've seen towards shallow communication. You know, a deep conversation is a full-on cognitive workout and forces you to listen, to interpret cues, to build arguments, to feel empathy. It's complex. But when we replace that with quick, superficial stuff online, likes, emojis, one-word comments, we're skipping a vital mental exercise. And those higher-level social skills can actually start to fade.
So let's just put it all together for a second. From multitasking that kills our productivity to poor sleep that messes with our memory, every single one of these 8 habits has a real, measurable cognitive cost. But here's the good news. Just being aware of them, just knowing they exist, is the first and honestly, the most powerful step toward taking back your mental energy. And that really brings us to the final question for you. You don't have to change everything all at once. That's not the point. Just pick one. Out of all these, which quiet habit are you going to choose to work on first? Thanks so much for tuning in.